Howdy folks, and welcome back to yet another review. Today, we'll be going back in time to 1719 and encountering the most terrifying thing of all, the French. Just kidding, although the French are involved. Today we'll be looking at the 2022 science fiction action horror film, Prey. Now, you might be wondering, why am I looking at a nearly 3-year-old film? And to put it simply, it's because next month a new Predator film is coming out called Predator: Killer of Killers, and I wanted to see how this film fared before I see that one. And spoilers, this film fared very well. Without further ado, let's get a bit into the background, shall we? As stated before, Prey is a 2022 film that was directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who is known for films such as 10 Cloverfield Lane. And that's it. He has a surprisingly small filmography, but he does have some impressive short films such as Portal, No Exit, and the intro cutscene to Warframe. So that's pretty neat. He's also doing the aforementioned Predator: Killer of Killers and Predator: Badlands, so I guess you can say he's an expert on predators. Okay, maybe I'll just refer to them as Yaucha from now on. Anyways, the screenplay was written by Patrick Eisen, with the story itself composed by both Eisen and Trachtenberg. The film was produced by 20th Century Studios, Davis Entertainment, and Lawrence Gordon Productions. The 99-minute-long film had a budget of only $65 million. The film first premiered at San Diego Comic-Con on July 21st, 2022 in a private screening. It would later be released as a Hulu original film on August 5th, 2022. Unfortunately, the film never saw a widespread release in theaters, but it was later released on DVD and Blu-ray on October 3rd, 2023. I don't know how well the physical release sold, but apparently when it premiered on Hulu and other streaming platforms, it was extremely successful. How successful? Well, we're getting 2 separate Predator films this year that are both directed by the same guy, so yeah, I think it did pretty well. With all that said, what exactly is this film all about? As IMDb puts it, Nehru, a skilled warrior of the Comanche Nation, fights to protect her tribe against one of the first highly evolved predators to land on Earth. That's a pretty decent description, but I think it misses out on a few key details to Nehru's character. As I put it, the story is more about how Nehru seeks a life where she is considered a great hunter. However, she is kept down by gender roles and general misogyny from some of the male members of her tribe. Her identity as a Comanche is important to her character, just as much as her need to defy gender norms. Oh yeah, and then there's the giant hulking alien killer, and French explorers who are killing all the buffalo. Honestly, of the two, I'd have to say the French seemed more evil. Anyways, I thought the story for the film was actually pretty good, if a bit repetitive if you've ever seen a Predator film before. It covers the usual ground of protagonists encountering the Predator, and then over time learning what its weaknesses are and improvising traps to defeat the alien hunter. Of course, there's nothing wrong with going back to a tried and true formula, and I think the setting of the story does a lot to make it more unique from the previous films in the franchise. I think it was absolutely a great idea to set it in 1719, with the background of it being in the Comanche Nation, with the advent of French explorers running amok and trapping everything in sight. Add a big ol' alien to the mix and you got yourself quite a fun adventure. Well, I say fun, but the film actually takes itself rather seriously. For folks who like animals, I'll just warn you ahead of time, you're gonna see a lot of dead CGI critters. It doesn't shy away from violence, as this is a violent time it has brought us to. It is ostensibly a world of hurt. Now, I won't say anything more about the story because I don't want to spoil it. Just know that for my thoughts on it, it was good. Now let's take a look at who's in the story. For this story, you really only have 3 prominent characters. The first being Nehru, who is played by Amber Midthunder. I thought Amber did an absolutely great job at playing our protagonist. Nehru isn't a slouch. She's skilled in combat, but she's also smart enough to know when to run and when to fight. What I'm trying to say is, she isn't like Arnold. She isn't some big, muscle-bound man with constant one-liners. They are similar in that they know how to fight and how to hide, But Nehru early on makes it clear that she isn't known for brawn, but rather her intelligence and athleticism. And I think Amber really did highlight that clear distinction through her acting ability. The film isn't too dialogue heavy, with much of it being devoted towards silence. She lets her physical acting carry much of her performance. Then we have our second character, Tabe, who is played by Dakota Beavers. He's Nehru's brother, and he's a skilled fighter just like her, but he seems to hold her back a bit. At one point, he becomes war leader for his tribe by hunting down a dangerous beast that his sister was supposed to kill but couldn't, which creates a small rift between the two. I would say that this rift between them doesn't last too long, which often doesn't between closely bonded siblings. I think Beavers also did great in his role, and I hope to see him in more films in the future. Finally, you have the feral predator, also known as the Mupitsi, who was played by Dane DeLagro. The main attraction for the film, the Mupitsi was absolutely brutal in how it fought. Luckily, the film has plenty of cannon fodder for it to go through, making it a living meat grinder. I think DeLagro did excellently at physically portraying this massive, towering monster that was also a keenly intelligent being. As with most Predator films, it takes a lot to make a dent in this thing, and anything you do to it, it'll send back your way tenfold. In fact, speaking of the Mupitsi, let's talk a bit about the effects and CGI. For this film, Amalgamated Dynamic Inc. did the creature effects. That's right, the Predator for most of the movie was actually practical, with the aforementioned DeLagro having to wear an 80-pound costume during most of the filming with a massive animatronic head. Apparently while working on set, the fake head actually caught on fire at one point. Talk about a hot head. For the visual effects, the moving picture company was brought in. They were mostly responsible for the invisibility effects of the Predator and the various CGI critters that were seen in the film. For such a small budget, I would have to say that they did an incredible job. Again, it isn't Avatar levels, but seeing what's on display here really showcases just how far we've come in terms of computer technology. And what's so good about any of this if we don't see it in action? Well, let's discuss the fight scenes, shall we? Oh man, the fight scenes in this film are so much fun to see. They go on just long enough without becoming too boring. The Mupitsi strikes with such precision that it reminds you that it isn't some dumb lumbering beast. This is an intelligent organism that fights with purpose, which makes some of the fight scenes have more weight when you remember that it is primarily hunting people. And then there's animals too. Man, there's a scene involving a bear in this film that had me feeling so bad for the poor thing. I mean, the bear did try to eat Nehru, but hey, it's a wild animal. It doesn't know any better. Oh, and it's also CGI. I will say that towards the end, however, the Mupitsi does seem to come across as a bit less intelligent, seeming to fall for obvious traps. I guess you could chalk it up to this being one of the first interactions the species has ever had with humans, so it isn't aware of what exactly they are capable of. Unless you follow AVP canon, in which case I cannot travel down that road with you. Finally, we have the music. For this film, the score is composed by Sarah Sachner, and I would say that it is fine. It does a great job at filling in the silence of the film whenever characters aren't talking. I personally wasn't too awestruck by it, but after listening to it again, I have to say that it is definitely having some fun parts that I do enjoy listening to. So, overall, would I recommend Prey? And my answer would be, if you are looking for a film that marries science fiction, action, and horror with that of the background and rich history of the Comanche Nation, then yes, you absolutely should see it. It isn't without its flaws, mind you. The story still follows similar beats to the other Predator films, and at times the Mupitsi seems to lose its intelligence to make some pretty boneheaded moves. Get it? But those are such minor nitpicks that I barely even considered them when making this recommendation. Again, I know I'm a few years late on this, but I'm sure some of you watching now may not have seen it before. So I'd recommend either getting Hulu to see this film, or buying the film, to really appreciate everything it has to offer. And with that said, if you hear a strange roar in the middle of the night, or see a strange flash, maybe just lock your doors and stay inside. lest the beast comes for you. Howdy folks, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll be taking the next few weeks off to charge my battery, so to speak, and look at some content that I've been curious about but never had the chance to see. With that said, have you seen Prey before this review? If you did, what did you think of it? If you haven't seen it, will you see it now because of this review? Let me know in the comments down below. With all that said, I hope you all have a wonderful day.